record. And
right. Okay, thank you very much, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you very much, Jade and the crew at Link Assistive for organising this. So we're going to be looking at Clicker and Clicker 8 today, and just to give you a sort of an overview of what the session is going to look like in a fairly compressed time, we're going to have a quick look at the website, and I'm going to explain a little bit about what Clicker 8 is and what the Clicker apps are. We're then going to jump straight in. Oh, I said 40 minutes. Sorry, it is 30 minutes. Let me correct that one. I think about it. Okay. So we're then going to have a little look at writing support and something called analytics, which is brand new in Clicker 8. We're then going to look at our learning grids, which is like our online repository of pre-made resources for you. And if we've got time, we'll dip into how to make your own resources and maybe talk about close activities. And I'll finish with just a word or two about licensing. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is start on the website. And of course, if you're not familiar with Clicker, your first question will be, well, what is it? So Clicker is an award-winning literacy support tool, okay? So it has, it's for mostly, I'd say, up to about the age of 11 or 12, but if you've got older students with very significant learning challenges, it might well be appropriate for them too. I would say the majority of Clicker users are probably between 3 and 11, but you know, there's flexibility on that. So it's reading, writing, speaking, and listening. As I say, it's award-winning, and we're all a bit excited here because just about every version of Clicker, I think I'm right in saying every single version of Clicker has won a BET award, which are like the biggest awards in education technology. And the BET show, what didn't go ahead this year, obviously because of COVID, but they're still doing the awards. And there is an award ceremony tomorrow, and Clicker 8 is nominated for that. So keep all your fingers crossed for us. We're hoping that we're going to complete the set. Clicker 7 got a BET award, and we're hoping that Clicker 8 will as well. So Clicker 8 is, well, Clicker is split into two sections. Clicker 8 is a product for the computer. So that does everything: reading, writing, speaking, listening, labeling activities, sorting activities, sort of things that you might use to introduce topics to a class, but also students can sit down and get support one-to-one, okay? And if you're using Clicker with students that have got significant learning challenges, and particularly physical challenges, if they're eye gaze users or switch users, you'll probably end up using Clicker 8. It's got lots of built-in facilities there to support special access. But we've also got a suite of apps. So the first one of those is Clicker Writer, which works on the iPad and works on the Chromebook and distills out the writing support aspects of Clicker. Now that's just the first of a suite of apps that we're planning. So coming out later this year, we've got Clicker Books, which brings bookmaking capabilities to the iPad and the Chromebook. And over the course of the next year or so, we've got quite a few apps planned. So more and more of the full feature set that's available in Clicker 8 is going to be available on the iPad and the Chromebook, and all existing subscribers to the software, as soon as we bring out a new app, they're then allowed to add that app to the devices that they've already licensed Clicker Writer on. So when you so when you buy a license, if you buy 5 licenses for Clicker, you can choose to put 2 of those as Clicker 8 on a computer and a couple on Clicker Writer on an iPad, say. So what I'm actually going to be showing you today, though, is the fully featured Clicker 8. And when we open Clicker 8, we can do a number of things. We can jump in and create a new document, which is what I'm going to do in just a second. You might create a new board. So if you were working with a child, maybe the child's dyslexic and has trouble organizing their thoughts, you could help them arrange those thoughts by putting pictures, words, even flow diagrams and things onto a Clicker board. It can also be used for whole class teaching. And then we've got books, and books are brilliant because we've got books that the children can read, books that you can use to introduce a story or a topic to a class, but also children can make their own books, so they can write their own versions. And new in Clicker 8, the books also support video. So some students that might struggle to express themselves in writing, but could talk quite confidently about a topic, they could actually use the video facilities and actually record themselves talking about their understanding of a topic. But just to start off with, let's focus on the writing support. So we're going to go into the new document here, and what you've got here is the writing section of Clicker, which is basically a fairly simple, straightforward, child-friendly word processor with lots of support structures in. The children will tend to just use this document ribbon here. There are other ribbons like Clicker sets that we'll come to in a bit, analytics, options, and help. But for the moment, let's just do some writing. So imagine that I'm a little girl. I know I don't look massively like a little girl. Imagine I'm a little girl called Rosie doing some writing. I'm just going to type in my name is Rosie. Now, I'm going to put the full stop in, and what Clicker will do is respond by doing a number of things. So watch carefully.
My name is Rosie.
So Jade, I'm going to pick on you at this point. So what did you notice Clicker do when I put my full stop in?
It read the sentence back to you, Phil. Rosie.
It absolutely, yeah, you can call me Rosie, that's fine, I don't mind. So the first thing it did is it read the sentence back. Now it spoke back in a child's voice, human sounding voice. Now because I'm brought up in the UK, I tend to use the UK speech engine, but just so that you're aware, there are speech engines available that are localized for Australia. So if I pick Lisa, for example, as my speech engine, and we listen to that again.
My name is Rosie.
Sorry, I didn't actually click on it. Let's try that again. Lisa, thank you.
My name is Rosie.
Okay, so we have got accented voices. I'm going to stick for Rosie for the moment, but we've got accented voices. So that's the first thing. What else did it do, Jade?
It highlighted each word as it was reading it.
Absolutely. So you've got visual reinforcement of the speech support. Now that's brilliant for those children who are emergent readers and writers. They're learning to link the words they're hearing in their mind to the words they're seeing on the page, so they can track it as it's reading along. Also, if they make a mistake in their writing, it's much easier to spot it if they're tracking it along as it highlights. And I don't know if you spotted it, but it did one other thing.
Oh, now you're testing me.
I definitely am. Look, I'll put you out of your misery. It capitalized the M of my and the R of Rosie automatically. Okay, so this is something that might be appropriate for some children, but others you'd feel that was over supporting. And the whole philosophy behind Clicker is that you can change the level of support depending on who it is we're working with. So if we go into our options, it's actually in the spell check options, we can change the capitalization there. So we could switch that off. Now, if you're working in a class setting, you could actually have different groups. You could have our red group that has that switched on and our green group that has it switched off or whatever. So you can actually save those settings on Clicker 8 if you're working in a class setting. Okay, so maybe I'm dyslexic and I find writing really hard. Whoops, as you can see. So Jade, I've got to the end of my sentence. Clicker has not read back to me. Why not?
Because you haven't put a full stop.
Yeah, 100%. I bet there are children that you work with that sometimes forget to punctuate their work. But one of the great things about Clicker is that they're expecting this speech feedback. They get used to it. So when you get to the end of the sentence and it doesn't feed back, they're thinking, what have I done? Oh, silly me, I've not put my full stop in. Now, I used to be a teacher. I used to spend a lot of time saying to my pupils, you've just put something down on paper. If only you checked your work, you'd have spotted there's an error. Well, here they are checking it because they can hear that it's wrong.
I find writing really hard.
Okay, so I can see it's wrong because it's underlined in red. I can hear it's wrong. Now, if you're working with older children, sure, you can just do the right click thing and get your list of words. One of the problems with that is that particularly with younger children that may not have the best mouse control, they might just click on the wrong thing just because they haven't controlled the mouse very accurately. So particularly when I'm working with younger children, or if we're doing some group writing at like an interactive screen or something, then I would press this ABC button and you get this lovely child-friendly floating spell checker. Okay, now it might well be that if I don't know how to spell writing in the first place, I'm not massively sure which of these are correct. But the great thing about Clicker is if I'm unsure about any of these, I can just right click.
Sitting, hitting, writing.
Ah, that's what I want. So a right click listen,
writing,
and then just a standard left click to send it in. Okay, now what you might quite reasonably ask, because these features I'm showing at the moment are also available in Clicker Writer on the iPad and on the Chromebook, how do I right click on those? Well, Chromebook, it's funny, it's a 2-finger click normally, so you touch the pad with 2 fingers and that will do a right click, but both on Chromebooks and on iPads you can just use the sound shift. So if you click that blue button there, anything you click on after having clicked on the blue button will then read back to you, so you can still get that speech support, even if you're using a device like an iPad where you haven't necessarily got a mouse. Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Phil, to interrupt. Samantha has just had a really great question, which is about using eye gaze or switches. Are all those functions still available, or how is that achieved?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's probably slightly beyond the scope of today to dive too deeply into switch access and eye gaze, but absolutely you can access the predictor and the spell checker. We haven't shown you the predictor yet, but things like the spell checker, you can access them as a switch user. So what you would normally do, we've got a keyboard here. So there are different styles of keyboard, and what you do is you have a keyboard where at the top, you've got a list of all your spell check options, or the predictor that we're coming on to in a few moments will be listed along the top of there, and that's scannable with switches, and also you can look at it with an eye gaze. So it's a great question to actually demonstrate it slightly beyond what we've got time for now, but absolutely you can, yes. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, thank you for that question. Yep, keep them coming. That's great. Okay. So next thing, we're going to talk about voice notes. So some children, because they have maybe a learning difficulty, dyslexia is very common for this, they might have poor working memory. So I'm thinking about the child where if you're in conversation with them, they come up with lots of great ideas about what they want to write about, but those ideas rarely materialize onto the page. When they're actually in the process of writing, they kind of all slip away. So one thing you can do, and this works on the iPad, the Chromebook, and on Clicker 8, is record a voice note. So we've got this pop-up sound recorder, and I'm going to say, okay, so back into role as Rosie. Okay, I like playing with my brother. I keep rabbits, and I quite like baking. Okay, so I've recorded those thoughts and clicked done, and that's gone into a little speech bubble on the left-hand side that I can listen back to as many times as I need to help support me with the work. Okay, so Jade, with all the lockdowns over the last year or so, have you had, in lots of parts of Australia, have you had children having to work from home for part of the year?
Yes, and I'm about to start homeschooling tomorrow. So yes, certainly we have.
Happy days, right?
Happy
Okay.
days, exactly.
So one way that we found this really useful in over the last couple of years is if you've got a student that isn't obviously working in front of you, what's the best way of communicating a task to them? Well, one way is to use this voice note and say, okay, Rosie, I'd like you to do some writing all about yourself and tell me about your favorite things. So then when Rosie gets stuck, she can listen back and actually hear the teacher's voice explaining the task to her. So that can work in a school setting as well. So you'll got less of a load of pupils forever putting their hand up asking for help, because they can get some independent support by clicking that first. And I've even seen, you can have 6 of these voice notes in a row. I've even seen them use, right, first do this, having a series of voice notes with a different instruction on each voice note. Okay, so really useful. And to listen to them, you just click on them. Okay, I like playing with my brother. I keep rabbits, and I quite like baking. Okay, I mentioned playing with my brother and the rabbits. Okay, let's listen to that back.
I like cooking my family and my pets.
And the thing that I hope you notice straight away is it sounds suspiciously like I'm trying to cook my family. So that's one of the great things about the speech support. It will even model punctuation. So if I put a comma in and let's listen again.
I like cooking my family and my pets.
You can hear the difference it makes. What about something like this?
Amazing.
Now let's change it to a question mark.
Amazing.
And then an exclamation mark.
Amazing.
Okay, so speech really expressive, really good for modeling different types of sentences, playing about with punctuation, and it's also tweakable. So we can go into the speech, we can obviously choose from a number of different speech engines. We can make it speak more slowly if it's speaking too quickly. You even got the option to make it speak after each word, which can be really useful in sentence support for pupils that take quite a long time to complete a sentence. Okay, if you're working with visually impaired individuals, you can actually make it speak after each letter. I mean, if you've got a keyboard in front of you and just quickly gaze down at it, you'll notice that the I and the L are fairly close together on most keyboards. So for a visually impaired user, they could hit one or other of those and not be confident. But if it's speaking out clearly I or L as they press that letter, then that support is really useful. Okay, so we need to move on. So the next little thing I want to talk about is the predictor. So the predictor is a tool that's going to help me with, if I'm not sure what word's going to come next, it's going to help me with that. It's going to help me with my spelling. It can even help me with grammar. So let's start off. My favorite, oh, I'm not sure. Look, this is how I'd use the sound shift.
Favorite.
Yeah, or you just right click.
Favorite.
Yeah, that's the word I want. My favorite sport is cycling. And you can see, even though I've made a mess of spelling cycling, it still helped me, okay?
My favorite sport is cycling.
So as long as you make a phonetically plausible attempt, it'll have a good go at helping you. It'll help me with grammar as well. If I was going to go, we was going swimming, if I type in we, where's was? No sign of it. I've got we were, but not we was. Whereas if I type in I, it will rethink and give us the options like was, because that follows the I. Now, it doesn't stop children picking the wrong thing. It just supports them by giving more appropriate options. There are resources we can come to in a moment, which if you've got somebody who is very, very weak and needs more directed support, that we can help them. But the word processor and predictor is supporting without taking over. Okay. Jade, have you got, is it likely that the attendees here will be working with children with dyslexia, and particularly maybe have an interest in sort of screen adaptations?
Oh, I'm going to have to ask for anyone to sort of identify that. I wouldn't know.
Okay.
Potentially, but I don't think that would be a large group.
No. Okay. Well, look, we'll leave that for the moment if anybody pings it up. I would just to let people know that there is a built-in dyslexia-friendly font and you can change the screen colors. I think that's probably all we need to say if it's not going to be a big focus. Yeah. Okay. So the thing that Clicker is really, really well known for, these things called clicker sets. So let's have a look at a clicker set now. So there are different types of clicker sets. The first of these three are the writing grids. So we've got basic sentence building, where we've just given the student a sentence and they have to unjumble it. Okay. The next one is a connect set, where we've given them lots of words and phrases and they've got to pick and choose an appropriate selection to make, to write a paragraph, say, about something. This is a bit more difficult than the sentence set because they've got some choices to make. And then we also have the word banks. So word banks are for children who, you know, they can type all their high frequency words, but perhaps, you know, they're writing about flowers and they can't spell photosynthesis. So we might have a word bank with some sciencey words in it. Okay. We do have other types of grids. So we mentioned the planning boards, these clicker boards here. We talked about our talking books, and we've got other things like talk sets, speaking listening activities, those are the matching activities, and under custom sets we have all sorts of stuff like labeling and sorting activities. But we're just going to start with a very simple writing grid. And this is a connect set, so this is the middle of the three. So I've got choices here, so I'm going to go my favorite food. Actually, I'm going to manually change that to foods. My favorite foods are, right, Jade, have a look at that blue list there and pick a couple of your favorites off there.
Okay, we're going to go with chocolate and...
Chocolate and?
Strawberries.
Okay, that's a good combination. Right, let's go with that.
My favourite foods are chocolate and strawberries.
Okay, so then in reality, we might then write about our favourite colours and our favourite animals, etc. Okay, so far so good. But what we're going to do now is look at clicker analytics, because if a student just presented you that piece of writing, you could make a judgment on what you thought the level of that writing was and how that matched with their abilities, but you haven't really got any information about how they put that together. But new for Clicker 8, we've got something called analytics. So whether they've written this document on the iPad or the Chromebook, or they've done it on Clicker 8 on a computer, if you load that document up into the computer, you can get to the Analytics tab, where you have a complete forensic level of detail breaking down exactly how they've performed on this piece of work. So the overview chart here, we can see that we've got most of the words came in from the keyboard, and if you want a list of those successful words, so those are all the words that were typed without any assistance, we've got the list of those successes there. Anything in red, well, that's where I needed a spell checker to help me, so I can see what the child typed, whether they use speech to help, and then the actual word. Okay. Oh, by the way, Sue, thank you for your question about forced order. I'll come to that in a minute. The predictor. So my favorite sport is cycling. You can see favorite and cycling came in from the predictor. And then all these orange words here, except for the S that I manually typed, all came in from this clicker set. Okay, so just had a question from Sue about something called forced order. So when you have a sentence set, let's show you that now. So another type of resource is a sentence set. So this one, you've just got one grid, sorry, one sentence per page of the grid. So the idea here is we can listen to the sentence.
My favourite colour is orange.
And then we would try and recreate that one sentence. So Sue, what you're asking about called forced order, we now call it guided order. But if a child was finding that sentence set too difficult, we can click on edit and we can change the options. So one way of making it easier is making it so that the sentence, the model sentence, is visible above the grid. Another way to make it easier is to put something in sentence order, so the words are in the right order. But if you absolutely want to ensure that nobody can click it out of order, you go to guided order. Okay, and it was just like apply that to the whole lot. There we go. So now you literally can't click favorite because you have to click my first. So it forces you through clicking them in order.
My favourite colour is orange.
Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Sue. It absolutely still there, but it's called, we call it guided order now rather than forced order, but it provides that same function. Okay, so we've talked about the analytics. Lots of teachers are doing these periodically throughout the year, so they may be maybe do one every 4 or 5 weeks or something, print off the results, and you've actually got a really good record then of the child's progress across the course of a year, say. Okay, it's brilliant because it just gives you a level of detail, a level of feedback that you wouldn't normally have. It allows you to plan for the future. Am I over supporting? Am I under supporting? Okay, right, so let's move on. So that's the kind of basic support that's available in the document. What we're going to do now is look at learning grids, and learning grids is a huge pile of resources. There's an ANZ version where there are a few localized ANZ resources, and there's also we filtered out a few that we think might be too UK centric, but you can visit either, it doesn't really matter. And if you're searching for a particular sort of resource, so if Sue wanted some sentence sets for guided order, she could filter by sentence sets down the left hand side here. You could filter by the age range, or you could browse the subject. So we've got, got English, you've got math, science, geography, history, some collections, and story corner. If we go to English, say, we've got all the phonics stuff here in the sounds and letters. We've got new to English, which is great for EAL, but also great for anybody struggling to gain basic English skills. We've got some more grammar kind of focused activities here, creative writing, all sorts of stuff. It's a really, really rich resource. And the good thing is this is going up all the time. So there's over 2,000 resources there right now. But every few weeks we put new resources up. Okay, I'm actually going to go to Story Corner because there's lots of really good stories here. And I'm going to pick something like a traditional story like legend like King Midas and the Golden Touch. So if we were teaching this, we've got 12 resources, and the first resource that I might open is King Midas and the Golden Touch, the talking story here. So this is original, well, obviously based on the legend, but we've drawn this book and we've written this book, okay? And it's reasonably wordy. It might be suitable for reading to a class, okay? Now, if you've got a child where you want to develop their reading skills, you give them a simplified version of this. So there's a read it yourself version, and the read it yourself version only has one sentence per page, so it's a simplified version for them. Ultimately, you might want to get them to write their own version. So there's King Midas and the Golden Touch Make a Book, but also there's speaking and listening activities. So a tell the story activity, the sort of talk for writing approach, the idea that if you articulate something, you're going to be more successful when you write it. So you could get them to speak into the microphone about this book first. The sentence sets and connect sets to give different levels of support. So it's great for differentiating for a wide range of abilities. And you've even got like some word banks. So for more confident writers, you've got the quick words, which is just a simple bank of basic words. You've got the A to Z, which is a more comprehensive bank of words. And we've even got some on-screen worksheets here. Why did King Midas invite Silenus to stay at the castle? And here are the words that we might use to answer it. Okay, so that's just a quick dip into one of the many, many topics that are available on Learning Grids. Those are all free of charge, and you just access those on the Learning Grids tab there. And it's definitely worth keeping an eye on that, because, let's say, we've got 2,550 resources at the moment, and that's going up all the time. Okay, if the Olympics go ahead, then I would imagine we'll see some Olympics resources. We're always putting sort of topical resources up there. Okay, so there's one more resource I want to show you in here. Let's just go to, actually, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do traditional stories. So we're writing a traditional story. Okay. So let's use traditional story words here. So we've got characters, settings, nouns, adjectives, and connectives. And these are, and these might be great to help a child put together a traditional story, but it might be that the child is struggling with some of these words and, you know, struggling to access some of this vocabulary. So what we can do is, new for Clicker 8, you can go to Edit Clicker Set. Let's just make the cells a little bit bigger. And then there's this magic button here called Picturize, and watch this. It just goes through and finds pictures for everything. So you've now got a whole bunch of picture support to help these children with the writing. Okay, we're a tiny bit short on time, but you literally can drag and drop straight. Oh, I'm going to show you. You can drag and drop straight in from the web. So let's click next to Google. Okay, let's say that we want Harry Potter. Let's have that as a wizard. So let's go find some images of Harry Potter. Yep, you'll do. So I pick up Harry Potter and I just drop him onto wizard there. And you can actually use your own pictures as well. It's possible that if you're working with children that use symbol sets, you can buy, you can also buy widget symbols for Clicker, PCS symbols for Clicker, and symbol sticks for Clicker as well. Okay, and Picturize will work with those too. So if I just show you that now, if we get this page, if I do Picturize, but instead of Crick Picks, choose, what would be the most common symbol set, Jade?
I'm going to say I'm going to say PCS.
Okay, so let's pick PCS instead. So now it's populated that with PCS symbols. Okay, so yeah, so I've just got various different ones installed there, but yeah, you can get those as plugins for Clicker. Okay, right. I'm conscious that I've spent almost my half an hour. It's worth just pointing out that as well as the masses of built-in activities, you can make your own very quickly. So here's a page of text on volcanoes. Literally can just select that, copy it, and go into Clicker and say, Clicker Set, give me a new, let's give me a new word bank, paste that text in, we'll have alphabetic grids, and I'll filter out the more common words. There we go, bang. So literally in no time at all, you can create a resource on anything, okay? I'd also like to point out that some schools, you know, some people will buy this with the aim of helping a particular individual. Some schools just get this as a cross-curricular, all-inclusive literacy tool. And there are some really good resources like persuasive writing frames and things that are good for pushing the top end as well. So please don't go away from the demo thinking that Clicker is just for children with special needs. It's actually a great literacy tool for all. So finally, just talking about the way that licensing works. So you can buy, there's basically these, Jade will be able to help you with prices in Australia. I'm just going to show you the different licensing options in, these are just the UK prices, but the 1+1 one license is designed for a student and the teacher working with them. So that allows the student to maybe do some work on Clicker Writer or on Clicker 8, and allows the teacher to do planning and preparation and also use the Clicker Analytics on a separate computer. Sometimes people use that just as 2 licenses, and they'll give it to one individual and they'll have it on an iPad and on a computer, say. 5 licenses, these by the way are all for use within one school. 5 licenses, you can put it on 5 devices, and it's any mix of apps on iPads and Chromebooks and Clicker 8 on computers, Windows and Mac computers. Just be aware that for iPads, Windows and Mac, what you license is the device, but the way that Chromebooks work is you attach software to a student's login. So that would be, if you were using that on Chromebooks, that means you could give it to 5 students. But if you were using it on iPads, you could put it on 5 iPads and you could have 100 different students using them over the course of the year. Same for 10. The only one that's interesting, I'll answer your NDIS question in a second. But yeah, the only one that's sort of significantly different is the site license. So this is for schools that want to take an all-inclusive approach to using Clicker. And this gives you, like all of the licenses are, 3-year licenses, and that includes use at home as well. So teachers and students can install Clicker at home. Absolutely, it can be funded through NDIS. You can fund it for individuals. That is how Clicker is quite regularly purchased. And if the individual is owning the device, there are some slightly lower price licenses, well not slightly, they're significantly lower price licenses that they can use the home user licensing price if the device is owned by or is ultimately going to be owned by the parents. Okay, Jade, I've spent exactly half an hour, so I'm going to stop there, and any further questions, happy to answer them.
Okay, that's wonderful. That was a very wonderful effort. Commendations here. Phil, I can't start my video. Are you able to start it from your end, because you're now the host?
Oh, I'm in charge. This is exciting.
Yes. I don't know if you can allow me to start my video, but
I think I can just make you the host.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, you're back as host now, so you should be, yeah.
So can you see me now?
I can indeed.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks so much for presenting that to us, Phil. I guess one of the questions that I would have would be, obviously, people can certainly come to us at Link Assistive with any questions whatsoever. Any of our team can answer those for you. But is there another way, Phil, that if they've got some of those more in-depth questions, so particularly around the eye gaze question, etc., are there ways that they can ask those questions directly to you, or yeah,
that's a great question. So so if I just let me have a think. If I just open the template for this, I think I've got, if I just go that's just info at. So let me just put my address here so you can get directly to me. So whoops. If I just type that in, phil.hackett@cricksoft.com, you can address any questions directly to me on that number. Sorry, on that email address. If you want to phone us, that is the number, but you'll need to do +44 like that. So you can call us, but just remember that we're on the UK time zone. So we've literally 7 minutes ago, our support lines will have opened up, although you can get free technical support via the website. So by all means, ask me questions, but actually you'll be able to find the answers to a lot of questions you might have in the training and support sections of the website. So if you decide that you want to purchase Clicker, obviously talk to Link Assistive about getting Clicker, and once you've got it in, we've got these on-demand webinars which give complete training overview of Clicker. And then if you want to dive into any one particular feature and want support with that, that's a pleasure, Sue. That you can just jump into like Clicker document writing in grids. You can jump in and get some specific support. They're just short videos and help sheets on how to use specific aspects. And we talked about accessibility, like the eye gaze stuff. That's all down there in the tailor the features section.
That's great. Wonderful. Just before we close off, are there any other questions that anyone wants to pop into the chat box now for Phil to answer?
Yeah, well, it'll take them a minute to type it if they have got a question, but
Yeah.
no, we've had some good questions today.
Yes. As I said, Phil, I imagine that a lot of the attendees here today are actually speech therapists from what I can see.
Okay.
So I imagine they'd be more using Clicker on an individual basis.
Fine. So
Or at
yeah,
least
1+1 licenses, or
yeah. Or liaising with a school who is using Clicker.
yeah. I mean, what often happens in that situation is that somebody like speech and language therapist will recommend Clicker for an individual. The school will look at it and go, "Oh my goodness, that's amazing. We ought to have it for lots of children." And sometimes the school will then decide to invest more widely. Oh, thank you very much. That's a nice comment. Amazing presentation. Thank you. I'll take that. Thank you.
I've got one last question just in regards to the NDIS. So
Yeah.
sometimes the NDIS, I think I've probably asked you this before, Phil, but sometimes the NDIS will come back and say that if it's related to education, it's not within the scope of the disability insurance scheme. So we've often spoken to people around what that participant's NDIS goals are. And obviously Clicker has a lot of features that can be geared towards speech therapy goals and etc. But have you encountered that before? And if so, what is your sort of response to that? It's only education thing.
Yeah, I think it goes much further than education. I would absolutely say that Clicker is an assistive technology tool, and this might be the only way that a particular individual can access basic functions like being able to write and communicate. So yes, of course, there's an educational element in Clicker. I mean, all the learning grids, we've shown that by looking at some of the learning grids, but that's only, the educational part is only an element within Clicker. For a lot of users of Clicker, it's a key piece of assistive technology, which is allowing them to access the basic sort of things that probably the rest of us take for granted on a day-to-day basis, like being able to write, being able to communicate. Absolutely. So yeah, that would be my answer to that. And I absolutely know that it's been, it has been purchased successfully under the NDIS scheme.
Right.
Okay, so Clara's got a question. We're still using Clicker 7 at our school. Could we upgrade to Clicker 8 before our license expires? Okay, so the first thing is, Clara, your Clicker 7 license will not expire because we only started subscriptions with Clicker 8. So Clicker 7 licenses were perpetual licenses, although of course at some point technology will overtake them. I don't know if they'll still work when Windows 11 comes out, for example. Up until the end of this year, then you can get a 20% discount if you have Clicker 7. So if you are moving from Clicker 7 to Clicker 8, and even if you only had a small license for Clicker 7 and you want a bigger license for Clicker 8, whatever license you go for, you can have 20%, you can have 20%, you can have a 20% discount. So yeah, but you must do it before the end of December this year, because the upgrade licenses stop at the end of this year. But at the moment, yeah, you can get 20% off.
Great. So Clara, if you wanted to get more information about that, you can certainly just contact us and we can help with that as well.
Fab.
All right. Well, I'm mindful that we are well over time now. So thank you very, very much, everyone, for coming along today. As I said, you will get a link to the recording. We'll also be putting this recording up on our website under recorded webinars. So if you've got colleagues or friends who you think will be interested in the content, please do share. If you have any questions about Clicker 8, please do feel free to come directly to me in the first instance. I am not organised and don't have my email address written down, but it's basically just Jade, Jade @linkassistive.com. Thank you so much, Phil, for joining us from, where in the UK are you exactly, Phil?
In Northampton. It's about an hour north of London. Okay,
there you go, from Northampton. And certainly if anyone has any further questions, we can pass them on to Phil as well. So I'm going to stop the recording now. And that's the end of the webinar today, guys. So thanks very much.